Sam Ross meets Stephen Fry, an ambition of a lifetime.
Fulfilled. Mr. Fry, you're big on Twitter.
I have, yeah.
How does it appeal to you?
Oh, how or why?
Why then?
I tell you why, because it cuts out people like you. I mean, not you, but journalists. You know, obviously, you're a nice student journalist and not cynicised by the business. But there are social networks on the web, as everyone is aware. The ones that became famous a few years ago, like MySpace and Facebook, suit a lot of people because they can have little closed worlds with their friends. They don't suit me because I had a Facebook page. I still have one, in fact, but it's private because it has to be. The thing is, if I had an open Facebook page, Facebook has an inbox. And what happened 3 years ago was that I would have 3,000 emails. And you can't deal with that. It's rude. You ignore them all. You literally can't see them all. So there may be some in there from friends and people you know or people that you would generally want to respond to, but it's just so many, you just go, oh, I can't cope with it. The point about Twitter is it's a stream. It's not, nothing's contained. It's like being in a forest with leaves blowing around you in autumn. You just catch one and say, oh, that's interesting, or another, but most of them flow over your face. So that's one good thing. Nobody tweets expecting to be answered. A public tweet doesn't expect an answer. So I may have 900,000 followers, or whatever it is, at the time of going to press, 800 and something now. But when they sort of tweet me, they know, unless they're idiotic, that I won't necessarily see their tweet. So they're just sharing it in an open sort of way. And sometimes I see it and sometimes I don't. That's one good thing. The second good thing, the really important one, is the press. And if you live in the public eye, up until now, you've had to do a deal with the devil, with the press. That's to say, suppose you have a book coming out, a TV series coming out, a film coming out. In order to get it publicised, you consent to do a TV or
like this.
Yeah, but even worse,
okay.
much worse, a newspaper interview. And it's out of your control. And the newspaper journalists, pity them. I'm not just blaming them, saying they're all villains. They know that they're only interviewing this person because this person's got something to sell. So in a sense, they think I'm being an unpaid PR operative for this bloody celebrity. So I'm gonna allow them to go on about their boring film, and then I'm going to stick it to them and say what a tosser they are. And everybody hates everybody. With Twitter, we cut the journalist out of the loop. I mean, it's a terrible thing in a way, but the fact is, all these Miley Cyruses, although she's just apparently left Twitter, but they have their million followers. So when someone says to them, when you do an interview in the newspaper for your new album, they go, no, I'll just tweet it. And 1 million people will see it. And that's more than your newspaper.
Have you used it for your book?
Yes, I mean, having said all that, I try and be slightly honourable about it, and I don't use it as too much of a shameless platform for self-promotion. At least because I've always been fascinated by technology, and I've always been an early adopter of new things. I was the first person I ever knew to be on the internet back in the late 80s. I literally did not know anybody who had an email address. I emailed people, but they were people I didn't know. They were just the only people who had email addresses. They were in America. They were fellow nerds like me. And you would email them about how to write a slip script or a PPP script, which was the way of getting online in those days. And they were in Chicago or in Sydney, Australia or something. But my friends, nobody had an email address. No political party had an email address. There was no World Wide Web at this point. It didn't exist. Hadn't been invented. So it was a very different system, but it was really good fun. And of course, it took off big time. I'm not saying that I'm a prophet, because I've joined things that have been disasters, and I've not joined things that have been hugely successful. But I've just always been really fascinated by the tech. So that's a really long answer to your short question, and you're dying to get a new one in. So
oh, no. Were you the first one to have Stephen Fry at hotmail.com?
No, Hotmail I never had because that was Microsoft, and Microsoft to me is the Satan.
Because you're an Apple lover.
Not no. It's more the other way around. I am Apple because I hate Microsoft so much. As much as that I love Apple. I think. I mean, we have to go back in history now. It's all very well to talk about what Windows is now and what Microsoft is now. Now they're rather the victim. It's hilarious. They were, if you go back to the 80s. What the point is, it seems to me, is that I think Microsoft held back the cause of computing by 10 years. You have to remember when Microsoft were all powerful, which they still are to some extent. The Mac had mice and graphic user interface, and there were other ways of using computers. There was no internet. I'm talking about the mid-80s. But everybody got this thing called MS-DOS, and it was absolute arid, tit-wanky rubbish. I mean, it was so bad, it was almost unbelievable, but it ran on IBM-style computers. And it's a big historical thing. And Bill Gates said, "I see no future in the internet," in the early 90s. That's how much of a prophet he was. He's a businessman. That's what he always was. I don't think he ever wrote a line of code in his life. He's not, this idea that he's a techie, geeky genius who invented something is absolute nonsense. He bought MS-DOS off the shelf. It was called QDOS. He bought it, and in a business deal, licensed it to IBM, and that's what made him his millions. So that's what annoys me, I have to say. Whereas Steve Jobs, for all his faults, and they are manifold, is a pioneer and a passionate believer in brilliant design and the extraordinary possibilities of computing. He wants stuff to be great. He wants it to be beautifully designed. He wants it to be astonishing. And whereas MS was always about being a business tool and dull. Don't really stuff.
You have an iPhone?
Well, I have 12 iPhones.
12?
Yeah.
Of different colours?
Well, mostly black, and about 4 of the 5 of them. I think I've got about 5 white ones.
What's your favourite app?
I would say Grindr, because I like shocking people with Grindr because they're so astonished by it. But I did that on Top Gear and got Jeremy Clarkson to go, "Oh my God, I don't believe it." At the moment, what's my favourite app? Golly, that's difficult to say. Lord, I quite like WorkSnug is a very good one. It uses these marvelous sort of flat, almost 3D this kind of this new kind of, not exactly virtual reality, but you know the kind I mean, where you see. I'll show it to you.
So it looks 3D, but it's not.
Well, it's what it is. It's about. This may not work because I think it's kind of almost London only, but let's have a look at it. It works. As you see, I've got pages and pages of.
Why do you have 12 phones, by the way?
Oh, because I just get them to do this and that with them, and then they break, and then I get another one, and I do this with it. It may not be a very good signal, so that would be tragic if it didn't work. No, I don't think it does. It just quit itself, rather embarrassingly. And yeah, it quits itself. So it's basically bust. You see, that's the problem. Hell, that's embarrassing. So I'll say AppBox Pro because it's just a good collection of.
You pay for them?
Things. Oh yeah. I mean, I sort of I got sent about 3 very different times. Well, I know the designer from Apple, Johnny Ive, is a friend, and he very sweetly sends me